guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Rose. So today I was supposed to be bringing you a different tutorial than the one I am bringing you guys, but it turned out that I didn't have the materials I needed to do that, so I will get back to that one. But in the course of playing around with that idea, I did come up with something else. So this was the initial one that I came up with. As you can see, it is see-through, and my initial tutorial video that I was going to do was embossing inside some laminating sheets, and somebody had asked me how I did that, so I was going to show you guys. But unfortunately I opened a new pack of laminating sheets and they were a lot thinner than the other ones that I had, and they really didn't work for the technique. But I did this instead, and I'm going to show you how to do this laminating. This is laminated on here, so I'm going to be showing you how to do this today. But I also wanted to show you some other little bits and pieces, kind of similar ideas. So what I've done, I have sandwiched this in between two pieces of card where I have cut a frame front and back, and I will be using this as, well, my initial idea was to use it as a journal insert. But I have since decided that I'm actually going to use these on the front of my Christmas cards because I think they're awesome. But yeah, I think they would make a fantastic insert into a journal. Just fun, you know, and they could be used as a bookmark, or they could be put into a pocket. They could be actually hinged and opened that way. Now, the one thing I will say is that I didn't think about the fact that this one had writing on it, so when it flips over, the writing is going to be backwards, which isn't the end of the world, but just something to think about. Now, because I am actually going to be putting this one on the front of the card, it's not going to matter so much anyway. But if you are using it as a flip or an insert for a journal or anything like that, just be aware that if you put writing on it, it's going to be backwards if you flip it over. So that's that one. This also, by the way, this is just a little laminated charm that I made. I wanted to check that the laminating pouches weren't defective, that it was the actual technique I was doing and not the pouches themselves. So I just laminated up some little fussy cuts, actually from Rach and Bella's Christmas past kit is where this one came from, and they make just such sweet little charms, and they're quite flat as well, which is helpful. Now I do have it on a pin, which will add a little bulk, but that's okay. So I just wanted to show you that one, and here I have a smaller one that will be going into a journal. And on this one I've tried a few different kinds of papers. So I had this printed vellum. I don't know if it's actual vellum, but it is it is see-through. Can you see that? So it is semi-transparent, and I have embossed on that as well. Now I will be giving you some embossing tips for these things as well. So I have sandwiched that again in between the two frames. I've put some labels and a ribbon and a little charm on here. And on the back of this one, because there's no writing, the image is still, you know, it's still the right way around. Well, it is backwards, but it looks like it could be the right way around. Now, the only thing is, it doesn't have the nice gold shine, but it still looks pretty good, so I like that. I have gone around this frame as well with some gold embossing powder, quite messily, which was kind of the aim. I didn't want it perfect, and I just put a ribbon on top. So I think that's very sweet. Make a nice little card in a journal. Obviously, there are no writing spaces on these, but you could make it into a trifold, the front of a trifold. You could use it as the cover of a notebook, etc., etc. So that's the printed vellum. Now I do have two others here. I haven't actually put these together because I will be using these for the back of a card, or for the front of a card, sorry. And I realised I don't actually need to sandwich it. I can just split this apart and I can have two panels. So that's awesome. So I have these nesting dies. I just cut another panel with the next size down. I have a Santa here, and I have embossed him in white. And he will slip behind here. Oh, let me get him situated. And there is that. So I'm going to put these all together and then mount them on the front of a card. I will pop it off the front of the card and make a nice dimensional card for me. But I can make 2 of them because I can split the panels. Now the papers that I have used for these centres, and you can actually also see that I have done some colouring on this one because he's not going to be turned over and you won't see that. I decided I'd do a little bit of colouring, just add a little touch. Anyway, the papers that I used for this, these are random papers that I have in my stash. I just went through to see what kind of papers I had. Now this one is kind of like, it feels very like glassine. I have a whole stack of this in different colours and it's quite shiny, but it worked perfectly well. That is this one here with the colours on him. And if you're wondering, I did the colouring with alcohol markers, just if you're wondering about that. So that worked out really well. And this one then is more kind of like a vellum or a tracing paper. It's kind of, it's actually almost like a cross between vellum and tracing paper. Again, don't know where it came from. Actually, I do know where it came from. It came from Aldi, but I don't know what it actually is. So the moral of this story is check what you have in your stash and see if they will work for heat embossing, and you might get some lovely transparent things. Things that, like, I really did not think that I would have much luck with these. But like I said, I will be giving you some tips for embossing on things like that. So yeah, I didn't have any tracing paper, which is absolutely so strange. I was full sure I had a whole notepad of it, but so I couldn't test it out on that. But I used what I had. Okay, so that's those. Now I am going to be showing you how to, what did I do with it? How to do this one, okay, with the laminating sheets. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a regular laminating sheet, like so. These are just a small size. These ones are 80 microns. I will be looking for some thicker ones to try that other technique. So I'm just going to put this through my laminating machine as is. Now, one other idea that I actually did think of, and I meant to do one to show you guys. You could put an image floating in the center before, put it through your laminating machine and have it like so. I've done something similar in my Alice in Wonderland journal. You may have seen that, and that would look awesome as well. But we're working with embossing today, so let's get this through the laminator and I'll be right back to you guys. Okay, so we have our sheet laminated. Now the reason I wanted to show you on the laminating sheet, well, there are lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is that, like, I don't have this heatable acetate in my stash, and it's something that I probably wouldn't buy, but I can get the same results using laminating sheets, which I do have, and I have the laminator. They're cheap and cheerful, readily available. They come into our local shops quite a lot. So I just thought that if you had laminator and laminating sheets, or your budget didn't stretch to the heatable acetate, that this might be a good way to go for you. So we have our sheet. I am going to position it in between my frames, like so. Close that up. I have my stamp chosen using this very pretty tree. I think this comes from just a fairly generic stamp set, like Icon stamps or something. They're cheap and cheerful. You can get them here in Ireland. So I'm going to stamp that into the middle with my Versamark. Before I do that, because this is acetate, it's plastic, it's going to have a lot of static cling. I am going to go over this with my patch. I'm so glad I thought of that beforehand, because it would have been a nightmare. want to get enough on there that I'm really not going to get too much static cling, and I'm doing both sides because it will just cling to both sides of this. Okay, look at that excess powder. Now, that's better. So, get this positioned. Now, I don't want to go too close to the top here because I want there to be enough room to actually glue the paper together. I can either bring the acetate all the way to the top or bring it down enough that I'd be able to glue the paper. I'm choosing to bring it down simply because I don't want it to be seen at the top. So that is that, and we'll get our stamp inked up. Sorry about the clattering. Let's get this moved over to you guys a bit. Get this stamped. Now, when you're stamping on acetate, the powder actually does help with this, but just be careful that when you put it down, you don't slide it. And when you're pressing it, press very gently and from the middle and work your way out, and that helps avoid sliding a little. Just don't rock it back and forth, don't kind of lean on the corners of your stamp block, that kind of thing. You're trying to just get it pressed down onto your acetate without moving it, and then lift it straight back up. Okay, so we have our stamp on there. We can't really see it, that's okay. Get our scratch paper. Now, I am embossing this one in gold. Because it's Christmas, I can use as much gold as I like, okay? And get this on here. Make sure we've got it all, because it's so hard to see the stamp. Now, as you can see, it looks like I still have a lot of embossing powder kind of all over the place, but I'm just going to turn over the acetate and flick it. That does help get rid of a lot of that excess, and you can flick this quite hard. Now, it hasn't gotten rid of all of it, and I know we put the powder on there, but we are dealing with acetate, so, you know, it's going to happen. All that excess in there. We do not want this stuff spilling all over the place. So bring back out our acetate and we'll just have a look. I mean, I can just go around most of it with my finger and get that powder off. I can see that there is some of that on the back of that piece as well. Now, obviously, you can use brushes as well to get rid of this. There isn't much left to get rid of on this side. And to get rid of the stuff on the other side, I am going to wipe it across the leg of my pants. You guys won't be able to see this. I'm just going to be very careful to not touch the actual stamped image. So, there I have a nice clean stamped image. Okay, now for the hard part. Now, I am going to turn off the sound while I am doing this, and I'm going to do a voiceover talking you through exactly what I'm doing as I'm heating this. Okay, you guys? Okay, you guys, so the first thing you're going to see me do, you're going to see me heat my heating tool for about 10 seconds before putting it anywhere near that acetate piece. And then when I do turn it around and point it towards the acetate, I am moving it rapidly over the stamped image. Now what this does, I call this priming the embossing powder, and it gets the embossing powder to a point just before melting without warping your acetate, because you're constantly moving that heat tool. So when I feel that that is enough, heated enough, I will slow right down and I will start to kind of slowly go over the stamped image, and the powder will start to turn, just as you can see there, and I'm still constantly moving my heating gun so that that acetate isn't warping at all. Now I do this for all those different papers that I have shown you. Okay, so we have our lovely stamped image. Now there is a little bit of excess powder on that, and I do not happen to have a cloth right now, so I'm just going to use my hand to take that off. Just that white powder just wipes off, and we have a beautiful embossed image on our acetate that can be double-sided. It doesn't look quite as pretty from the back side, but it still looks pretty good. Okay, so for our card piece, all I have done is I have taken a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock. This is very light cardstock. I have measured the size that I wanted. I just did it by eye and doubled the width, cut out this piece, folded it in half, and I used a die from my stash to just cut this out. Now this is very pretty, very ornate frame die. You can just use a craft knife and cut out a square. You can use any shape die that you have, as long as it leaves you a window. I have used several different ones, as you have seen. Like, this is a decal edge die that I have. This is a scalloped circle one. I have used this frame die as well. And the great thing about using your dies is that you get all of these great pieces to use in other projects already with Christmas paper. So that's pretty awesome. So I'm going to have fun with those. I may do a video with some of those at some point. We shall see. So that is that. So I just cut out my die. I folded it over and then cut it, so that it was cutting through the two pieces all at the same time. Okay. Now, I have not inked this particular piece because it's very, very delicate. So I'm going to ink it afterwards. But if you're using a simpler shape, you could ink around the edges of your frame right now. Okay. So it's time to get this situated in here. Just going to get this open. Now I am going to initially put some double-sided tape around the four edges of this. And you can use whatever glue you feel works best for you. I like to use double-sided tape when I'm using acetates and things like that. Just as a bit of extra security. I'll use it around the acetate piece and then I'll glue everything else. Okay, so that is that. Now, this is the side that I'm going to be gluing first. So I'm going to get glue all around here. And I'm using my high-tack fabric glue, which I find fantastic for these projects because it doesn't warp the paper if you put it on thinly enough. We don't want big pools of it. And also I left the double-sided tape on the other piece for the time being so that this glue will have time to actually set up a little bit while I'm taking that off. Because with fabric glues like this, the white fabric glues in particular, they often require you to leave them sit for a minute before they'll adhere properly, particularly fabric to fabric. And I find that that is a good principle to use when you're using these glues on things like acetate and stuff like that. So I'll speed this forward, guys. I'll be back to you very shortly. Okay, so we have it all glued down and I have my backing taken off my tape. So this is actually really great because you can see from the other side, because the windows are the very same, you have lots of scope to see from the other side where to position your piece. Now I'm being careful that I'm down enough from this top edge. It's not down as much as I would like, but it's okay. And that my tape isn't showing below where the frame is. So I have that in position. I'm just going to flip this and very carefully get it turned over into place. Now, because I have a very intricate and delicate die cut here, I'm being very, very gentle when I'm flipping it. I'm not pulling these pieces out of shape, or at least I'm trying not to. And anything that kind of does go wrong will be fixed when, well, we can fix it when we get the other side closed down. Okay, so that's that side. Oh, open sesame. Yeah. Of course, I forgot that I was going to be gluing the whole thing together. Okay, I'm not actually going to worry too much about the tape on this side. I think there's enough of a border around it with this glue that it'll work just fine. Okay, so we have that all glued up. I'm actually going to leave that for a minute, just to set up that glue. There's some tidying up done. Sometimes when I'm waiting for this glue, I'll waft it like that if I'm getting really impatient about it. But right now, yeah, we'll get a little tidying up done. Okay, that should be just enough to get it. Okay, so we have a little bit of white showing there. Now I'm going to get tissue, if I can find one. There's some really tea-dyed stuff. I spilled some coffee and mopped it up with this. Now, this glue will actually come off this acetate afterwards anyway, because it is a water-soluble glue, so I'm not too worried about that. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm liking that. Okay, so that is the basics. Now, I think this video is probably already long enough, so I'm not going to go and fiddle around with the finishings. You will do that in your own style anyway, I'm sure. I do have one big red bow that I think would look fabulous on the corner of this one, so I will probably do that. Oh, it's so pretty. It's so Christmassy. I just love Christmas. Okay, guys, I hope you have fun with these. Let me know what you come up with. All the different kind of papers that you might have in your stash. If you give it a go, let me know how they work out. I am absolutely having so much fun with these today. So do give it a go and have fun. And I'll talk to you guys very soon. Okay, bye.